I was in the middle of a training exercise teaching two new SWAT recruits how not to get themselves killed clearing a building when my phone buzzed. Nothing unusual there. My house is covered in cameras inside and out. Years of law enforcement left me with a healthy respect for situational awareness and a strong desire to catch any porch pirate in 4K. But when I tapped open the feed and saw what was happening in my living room, I nearly dropped the rubber training knife in my hand. A flashlight beam swept across the wall. A man in cargo pants and a vest that said Community Patrol was creeping past my bookshelf like he was part of a raid team clearing a terrorist compound. Two others followed, one with a fishing hat, another with a walkie-talkie clipped to her fanny pack. My stomach didn't nod out of fear, it was disbelief. They were in my house. Correction, it was Rachel's fake neighborhood patrol. And they had just broken into the wrong damn house. Let me rewind for a second. 2 weeks before this little disaster dressed as a safety sweep. My name's Noah. I've spent the last 15 years training SWAT, federal agents, private security, basically anyone who needs to be taught how to enter a room without getting filled with lead. After years in the field, I scaled back. These days, I mostly teach and consult. Bought a house in a quiet little suburb surrounded by neighbors who spend more time talking about recycling bins than risk assessments. It was perfect. Quiet, fenced, and HOA governed, but I figured I could live with a few lawn regulations in exchange for peace. That was before Rachel. Rachel Dorsey, the newly elected president of the HOA, wore pastels and pearls and ruled the community with the ironclad confidence of a medieval queen. She had a laminated badge reading chairwoman, a whistle she used on trash day disputes, and the kind of controlling energy you usually only see in low-budget political thrillers. Her latest project? A civilian community safety task force. Why? She said crime was on the rise. Never mind that the worst thing that had ever happened here was someone leaving their trash can out on a Sunday night. Rachel insisted we were one incident away from chaos, and she recruited like it was an Avengers initiative, passing out khaki shirts with Neighborhood Safety Enforcer stenciled across the back and giving out clipboards like they were badges. You can probably guess which house was at the top of her suspicious activity list. I kept to myself. Ran drills in my backyard. All legal, quiet, well within my rights. But to Rachel, my blackout blinds, motion sensors, and locked storage units spelled domestic terrorist more than retired instructor. When I explained I worked in law enforcement, she squinted like she was trying to decode the term. So like a security guard, she'd said. I didn't correct her. There was no point. A few days later, I got a pink slip taped to my door. A voluntary safety inspection request with voluntary in sarcastic quotes. It also said that refusal could lead to escalation for the safety of residents. I crumpled it and tossed it. That should have been the end of it. But Rachel doesn't do boundaries. Or reality. The night before the break-in, I caught her and two of her cronies measuring my driveway with a tape measure. When I stepped out and asked what the hell they were doing, she gave me that syrupy villain smile. Just checking setbacks, she chirped. You never know what's going on behind closed blinds. I told her to get off my property. She didn't acknowledge me. And the next day they were in my house. The moment I saw them on camera, I went still. Not panicked. Calculating. Could I beat them there? Were they armed? Rachel's son, Cole, was in that group. He'd once bragged to me about being tactically trained after spending 2 summers playing airsoft and watching reruns of NCIS. The kind of guy who would bring pepper spray to a neighborhood watch meeting. I dismissed the rookies, cut training short, and got in my truck. Hit the silent alarm app. Called the police. Told them there were trespassers in my home. I didn't mention who I was. I wanted optics clean. I wanted Rachel to dig her own grave. I got there in 6 minutes. Parked down the street. Entered through the garage. By then, Rachel and her crew were in my kitchen arguing about whether they had the authority to cut the lock off my storage shed. One of them held bolt cutters. I killed the lights. They screamed. I didn't. You were trespassing in a private residence, I said calmly. Put down your tools, exit the premises, and lie on the ground. This is your only warning. Rachel shrieked something about being authorized personnel. Cole charged toward the hallway. I flipped the hallway stro part of a training rig and watched him slam face first into the wall like a cartoon. He crumpled. The others scrambled. But I was already at the door, flashlight in their faces, issuing commands. Rachel held her ground for 5 seconds. I know my rights, she shouted, pointing at me. Yes, I said, stepping closer, and you violated most of them tonight. 10 minutes later, the Real police showed up. I showed them ID, explained the situation, played them the footage. When they recognized me, they had to fight back laughter. Rachel tried to spin it. She claimed they were conducting a wellness check under HOA authority and that she was investigating potential threats to community stability. One of the officers asked, "Did he give you permission to enter?" "No," I said simply. Rachel went silent. Her empire of fake badges and khaki shirts was crumbling before her eyes. Lieutenant Adam Marquez stepped out of the cruiser next. I trained him myself. He gave me a subtle nod and stayed cool. But the way Rachel talked to him like she was the one in charge, you could tell she had no idea who she was dealing with. "I watched a 10-minute video," Marquez said, folding his arms, "of you breaking into a man's house with bolt cutters and a flashlight. If this were anyone else's home, you'd be in handcuffs already." Rachel tried one last time. "This is a misunderstanding. Harassment's just mad I was investigating." Marquez radioed for backup. When the second cruiser arrived, reality hit hard. Cole got checked by the medics and loaded into the back of the car. Janet and Ron, her longtime stooges, gave confused, rambling statements. Rachel? She refused to answer anything that wasn't legally mandatory, which she said with the confidence of someone who's watched half an episode of Law and Order and thinks she's a civil rights attorney. As they were being processed, neighbors gathered. Like a reverse block party. Mrs. Laney across the street watched it all with a martini in hand. "What the hell happened?" she mouthed. "Rachel broke into my house," I said. "About damn time," she muttered. The inside of my home was a mess. Drawers opened. Closet doors ajar. Even the dog food container had been checked like they expected to find bombs next to the kibble. That night, I reviewed everything. Labeled the footage. Saved audio. Rachel hadn't just crossed a line, she nuked it. She didn't just invade my house, she declared herself the law. I wasn't letting this slide. The next day, someone uploaded a blurry video to the neighborhood group chat. Rachel being escorted off my lawn. The caption, "HOA security team raids SWAT instructor's house gets owned." It blew up. Suddenly, people had stories. Mr. Lynn 2 blocks down said Rachel once accused his daughter of espionage for using binoculars during a school project. A woman on Alder Lane said her son was followed home for wearing a hoodie. Another neighbor produced a literal binder full of Rachel's passive-aggressive warnings about non-regulation composting. The illusion of authority snapped. Rachel wasn't a leader. She was a stalker with a clipboard. The day after, a black SUV rolled up to my curb. Out stepped a Vanna buddy of mine turned federal investigator. We caught up, then reviewed the footage. I showed him everything, the emails, the surveillance binder they'd left behind. It had names, routines, even timestamps from behind bushes. Evan shook his head. "This isn't just creepy," he said. "This is unlawful surveillance. If she used HOA funds for this, she's toast." I leaked the story to a local blog anonymously. Headline: HOA president leads illegal raid on resident's home. Within hours, Reddit got hold of it. Memes followed. One showed Rachel in aviators with the caption, "Commandant of the cul-de-sac." The HOA scrambled. Emergency meeting. Someone leaked the Zoom link. I watched as Rachel claimed she was invited into the home for a joint safety initiative. Then someone played the footage of her yelling, "Cut the lock. I don't care if it's illegal." Dead silence. By the next day, city investigators were knocking on her door. And I wasn't even done. With Evan's help, I filed a formal complaint to the district attorney. Not just about the break-in, but the entire operation, impersonation of authority, surveillance without consent, misuse of community funds. Then came the emergency vote. Judith Langlia, retired Navy JOG, ran the meeting like a courtroom. Rachel showed up flanked by 2 teenagers in matching polos. The crowd? Silent. The video played. Rachel tried to deny it. Judith asked, "Do you deny this is you?" Rachel sputtered. Blamed the angle. Claimed her voice was digitally manipulated. Mr. Adler, a retired cop, stood up. "I ran it through forensic software. It's real." Rachel was removed from the board. The task force disbanded. You'd think it would stop there. It didn't. She held a press conference on her lawn. One neighbor, one dog, and a mailman who turned around when she started talking about tactical bullying. The city announced a public hearing. That hearing? Packed. People wore shirts that said HOA hands off. Someone even brought popcorn. I testified. Calmly. Just the facts. Her words, her footage, her choices. The judge ruled against her. Fined. Banned from HOA roles. Ordered to attend ethics training. Required to issue a public apology. When she finally delivered the letter silent, no eye contact, no entourage, 3 words were scrawled in the margin. I was wrong. That closed the chapter. Later, the board asked me to consult on actual neighborhood safety measures. I agreed on one condition. No more fake patrols. And absolutely no more Rachels. These days, I sit on my porch, drink in hand, while dogs bark and kids laugh in the street. The neighborhood is quieter. Lighter. No drones. No clipboards. Just peace. And if anyone tries to start trouble again, well, they'll know what happened the last time someone messed with the wrong house.